Shalom, shalom, everybody. This is RJ with another episode of What's That All About? And today I have my lovely wife here on set with me today, and we're going to talk about an issue or topic that's extremely controversial right now going on with Breonna Taylor. We're going to talk about, what happened with the decision that took place during the trial and some of the after effects of what's going on currently as a result. So stay tuned with us and we'll get into it. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is RJ and my lovely wife,
T.
And today we're going to talk about, a topic that's been discussed over and over and over again. And we feel compelled to speak about it some more. And so looking at the decision that took place, so the grand jury's decision meant that no one was criminally charged with killing Taylor, a 26-year-old Black emergency room technician and aspiring nurse. Demonstrations began immediately after news spread out about Hankinson's charges. An attorney for Taylor's family, Ben Crump, said the charges should have been deemed wanton murder. Now, what that means, the wanton murder is a depraved heart murder, also known as depraved indifference murder, is a type of murder where an individual acts with a depraved indifference to human life and where such acts result in a death despite that individual not explicitly intending to kill. In a depraved heart murder, defendants commit an act even though they know their act runs at an unusually high risk of causing death or serious bodily harm to a person. If the risk of death or bodily harm is great enough, ignoring it demonstrates a depraved indifference to human life, and the resulting death is considered to have been committed with malice aforethought. So, that was the argument that their attorney was trying to make, and it obviously fell on deaf ears. And I'm going to say this. I saw the writing on the wall when they gave the family a settlement of $12 million without even going to court. It just gave them $12 million. That right there told me that they were about to do what they normally do. They was going to let those cops off.
Well, I knew something was not kosher. I knew something was not kosher when they started boarding up the buildings before the verdict was even in.
Yep.
And as far as the settlement, there was another case, if you will remember back in Kentucky, there was an Australian American woman and her name was Justine Damon. I think she had come over, she was an American, but she was engaged to an American, she was Australian, and she had heard some kind of noise outside of her home. She called the police, normal thing. They came and one of the officers shot and killed her. And I remember that case because the officer was Somali American. And I remember that they had given her family like $20 million or something like that. And the officer was convicted of her murder and he's in jail for 12 years. So I think a lot of people thought that the similar, situation had happened. A civilian had gotten killed by an officer and that's what would happen. But just a lot of things that were happening before this case was even over. People were already saying that they did not think that justice would be served.
And this is like nothing new under the sun when it comes to us as Black folks, man. Like, I had a little inkling of hope. I was hoping that at least they would have been held accountable in some way, but I'm not surprised because too many times, too often, we see this happen and there is no justice. And then they try to indulge us with simple platitudes of, trying to cut us a check to make it go away.
Well, in America, we have this system called qualified immunity. And what that is that it protects all government officials, that they are protected from financial liability when they violate constitutional rights. This law was something that had been on paper and then it became law. And a lot of people are saying that they see this may have been a case of qualified immunity. Now, a lot of people are saying that we need to do away with this. That in this case, the reason why the other officers weren't charged was because of this law. One of the fallacies of the law by the Pacific Legal Foundation, if you'll look it up, it'll give you the definition and the pros and cons, is that it doesn't look at if there was malice or ill intent when an act was perpetrated. Mm-hmm. What it's looking at is, should we prosecute? It has to be something that's clearly established. So if someone has malice in their heart or they're doing something malicious, and there's all kinds of different theories out there, there's different stories. They said even before this was prosecuted that there were different stories going around on why the no-knock warrant was issued. Because one of the theories was that they said that she was doing drugs, but they said that was not true. We knew she was an EMT.
Right.
She was a celebrated EMT. They said that the reason why they got the warrant was because she had packages delivered supposedly from her ex-boyfriend who was dealing. And that's why they did it. They were doing a no-knock raid on a drug dealer's house. However, the postal inspector of her area said that Breonna, when she looked at her residence, had not received any packages within a year.
And that's the thing, man, is like they go out of their way to try to demonize the character of one of us when where our death results at the hand of the police.
So you have a lot of theories going around, and people are saying, well, he was supposed to do drugs, because at one time they tried to say her boyfriend, who was the one that fired at police, after he said that they did not identify themselves.
Right.
You know,
that was debunked.
He said that when when they were knocking on the door, that he saw someone come in with dark clothing. And I guess in some places, and I've heard of it too, people have said that there's been robberies, like people have broken into their homes. Now, I know I'm from Texas, and I saw a particular case where a lady said the same thing happened to her. People knocked on the door. She asked who it was. They kicked in her door. But she had dogs, mastiff dogs, massive dogs. And the people came in, her dogs, of course, attacked. They're going to protect their home. So these house break-ins are things that have happened, and sometimes they're fatal. Mm-hmm. So I don't think anybody who has someone knock on their door and they're not clearly identified, and also their clothing. See, I know we look at places like TV shows like Cops and things like that, and we've seen these things happen, but normally when they come in, they don't have on just regular jeans. They'll have on dark clothing, but they'll have police all over their wrists, all over their clothing.
Especially if it's if it's a warrant.
Vest. They have police.
Anytime there's paperwork being involved, but there's a warrant, they go in and they have to identify themselves as being police officers. And usually
they'll say it loud so everyone can hear it, police. And they do say open the door. Because I did see one time on an episode when they said police, this is, open the door. And the person actually opened the door because it's the police. Most people will. So there's a lot of stories going around, but my thing is, where was the accountability? Because when they were talking about this case, they said the only thing that one of the officers was charged with was wanton endangerment for firing shots through the wall, and it went through a neighbor's home?
Yeah, and they tried to twist the story and then put it in a way that they didn't even really care about the death of Breonna Taylor. They were focused on where the other bullets went that went through their apartment that could have, potentially injured somebody else. I'm like, y'all just put a bunch of bullets in a person in their own home, and y'all worried about something else. So,
but see, this case makes it so people have to be aware of the laws. Because I remember part of this case we heard where they said her boyfriend, first, you remember, it was debunked that he was not a drug dealer.
mm-hmm.
Secondly, it was debunked that he did not have license to have a gun. They did find out that he did have license to have a gun.
It was a registered firearm.
He's a registered firearm owner. So he did have the right to have the gun. And he said he felt that he was defending himself because he was like, there was nothing that denoted on their gear that they were police.
Right.
He said if it was police, he would of course comply with the law. This is 1:00 in the morning.
Right.
And so my thing is, I know with warrants, when you go with warrants, and you can look it up on TV shows like Law and Order, if you know something about law, they go in front of a judge and they tell the judge why they want these warrants, whether they're no-knock or any kind of warrant, but they have to justify it. So if their justification for this warrant was that she was a drug dealer, then they have to get all the proof stating that she is. And then a judge will sign it. But if the proof, and this is what their attorney, Mr. Crump, is saying, it was not as they had stated. It was a fallacy that she was not, dealing drugs, that her ex-boyfriend said that the police had come to him to try to get him to say that she was part of his operation and that he could get out earlier, and he refused. So it's like they're painting a picture of someone to say that she was something that she was not, because it has not come out that they've ever said that they've caught her doing anything illegal or illicit.
And even the paperwork they did when they, the paperwork wasn't even filled out properly when they did the warrant.
Well, I remember I heard a story that her mother said when she heard there was a shooting, that she went to her house and the police were there, and she asked them if her daughter was there where she was. They said she was at the hospital. So of course she ran to the hospital.
And they lied.
And then she was not there. So she went to every area hospital. They said she never was there. She went back to the house and a policeman told her that her daughter was in the house. So there's a lot of mistruths that we can see from this case.
So now fast forward to where we are today. Since all of this has happened, since the verdict came out, and now these police officers got to walk, now the Louisville police is telling protesters to use sidewalks to do their protests. And then they will consider it an unlawful assembly if that doesn't happen. So the minute they step out into the streets is when they're going to start bringing their police officers out to arrest. And then,
But how is it? I thought that we had freedom of speech, and I thought that we had freedom of assembly. So now we see where they're taking away rights little bit by little bit. So now you can't assemble. Now you can't base your opinion because people don't want to hear it. Even though freedom of speech doesn't mean that what you hear is something that you're going to want to hear.
And you're talking about, looking at what the police officers have. These police officers today, man, they are set up like the military. Like I was in the Army, and some of the gear that they have is better than the stuff that we had when I was in the Army. Like, okay, so as the marchers moved along Main Street shortly before 7 p.m. on this past Friday, police officers set up restraining lines in front of them and on a street to the left. Several flashbang devices exploded above the crowd. Now, I know what a flashbang is. A flashbang is a disorientation grenade. It's a grenade used it's a stun grenade, and it's really loud. It has a ring to it, and it's bright. So if you're within close proximity of a flashbang grenade, you can possibly have your eardrums blown out just from the impact of it. So like, this is stuff that cops today have now. They have all of this high-end, high-tech, equipment to disperse, a crowd. And that's the thing, so when people make the statements of defunding the police, and they're not talking about getting rid of the police department, they're basically saying to not have our police look like our military. Why would you need a police force to look like a military on a bunch of unarmed civilians?
But why would our police be firing on our civilians?
Well, I mean, they threw flashbangs. So flashbangs aren't necessarily designed to hurt anybody. It's just designed to have you disoriented enough to where they can apprehend you.
I don't think people want to defund the police, but they need to be policed. See, what they do is when someone breaks a law, you have to pay for it. So what happens when a policeman breaks the law? Who makes sure that they pay for it?
I mean, there were senior citizens and children in the crowd when they did that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was little kids there, and they throwing flashbang grenades up in the air, and like it's almost as if when you watch TV now here in America, watching the news, it's like watching the news when we used to see all of that stuff happening over like in the Middle East and all of these different places, and they're throwing Molotov cocktails and they're throwing rocks at the police. This is where we are right now in America. This is what it looks like. We're turning into those same places that we all used to look upon and be like, oh man, that's messed up. And now the shoe's on the other foot, and now these countries are looking at us like, man, it sucks to be y'all. Don't nobody want to go over there. America's not that appetizing anymore like it used to be.
But I think one of the main things is that people want justice.
Of course. And there was no justice. There was a lot
of people, I just don't see the justification. If she was what they said she was, I don't understand why they didn't do surveillance where they have, I haven't seen any proof. I haven't seen any articles on anything. And I like to look at both sides, the pros and the cons. I haven't seen anything that stated that she was someone that was dealing drugs. All I saw was a hardworking young girl that was trying to make a difference with the community, and that would be at work. They said that when she got off, she had gotten off late that day, that sometimes she would take extra shifts to help out.
Yeah, that could have easily been our daughter. You know what I'm saying? Our daughter's a healthcare worker and she works weird shifts like that. And like, I'm sorry, man, but I'm not going to get on TV and say, let's just all get along and let's just bring peace. No.
And nobody wants their child to be a hashtag. I don't think in this case that justice was served. I've been looking at some of the Facebook posts, and there was a guy that I think he explained it all. As a parent, he explained what the issue was with this case and why there's a problem. His name is Mr. James Hodge. I don't know if we can, but if you can look at a post that he did on this, it was the most fair post on this whole thing that I've heard the whole time.
And the thing is like, there will never be enough money to replace the loss of a child. Ever.
I wouldn't want money. There's no money you can give me.
Exactly.
I think it's like in this case, in any case when there's someone that is killed and you don't think it's justified, you don't want the money. The money can do nothing for you. I think in their cases, they want justice. They want someone to be held accountable for what happened. They want to have their day in court where they can say to that person what you did and how it hurt me and how it affected me. But when you don't have that, you have anger and you have sadness, because where are those emotions supposed to go? Because I don't think people understand that when someone passes, when they are murdered, when they are killed, that person has people that love them. That person affects other people's lives. And so it's not just that person, it's other people who are affected by that.
And the thing is like, we are, as a people, as Black people, we are getting to the point where we're put in a position where we don't have anything to lose anymore. And that is the most dangerous person to deal with on the face of this earth, is a person who doesn't have anything to lose. You keep kicking a dog and you kick that dog and you kick that dog, you're going to get to a point where you're going to kick that dog and he's going to bite you. And this is why you have Black America outraged right now. This is why.
But it's not just us, other people too, because if you're a parent, you put yourself in the place of that parent.
Right. And I understand what you're saying.
You put yourself in the place of that parent and you see exactly what happened. And it's hard for me to justify how that's even right. How that's legal.
And you're right. And that's the thing. Like, when it comes to the situation itself on the surface, it shouldn't matter. But actually it does, which is why we have to say things like Black Lives Matter. So
we're not just saying that other people's lives don't matter, but what we're saying is that right now, with us as a people, we are getting killed disproportionately and we're unarmed.
Facts.
And if you look at a lot of cases where people are armed and they come in, you don't understand how someone can get shot in the back, or someone is running away and they're shot, and how someone is running after you and shooting, but they're saying that their life was in danger. See, most people run away from danger, or they get away from it. They don't run towards it and say that their life was in jeopardy because you could have gone the other way.
Exactly. Police officers pulling us over, and then they show up with, right off the bat, they got their hand on their service weapon.
And that also makes a tense situation.
Absolutely.
That makes a tense situation because it's tense off of the back. But I've gotten pulled over. Who hasn't gotten pulled over by a policeman? However, it's how they start the interaction on how it goes. That policeman at the time that pulled me over did not come up aggressive, did not have his hand on his service weapon. He let me know what law I had broken. I asked if I could reach in and get my registration and my driver's license. He was able to see everything. I gave it to him. He told me to hold on. He was going to run my information through the system, which is what they do. He ran my information through the system. I assumed I was in my car. He came back and he said I had actually run a red light. I didn't see it. Sometimes, the lights are yellow. We go through, it goes red. And he was like, okay, I got a ticket. It's my right, if I want to go and dispute the ticket. He gave me my ticket, gave me my information, told me to have a good day, and that was the interaction.
It don't always go like that, though.
Yeah, but I think they're trained, and they do training where they are taught how to interact with people.
Yeah, that's some of them that know how to do it.
It is people's right to ask or to say, I don't think that's what it is. But it's usually, when you're stopped, you're not asked stuff such as, okay, you're not told why you're stopped, or you're not, stopped because they think you look suspicious. Stuff like that. That's not really a legal standpoint. I'm walking and I can be looking suspicious. Or if you're stopped and they don't tell you why, you can ask them, why are you stopped?
Yeah, but listen, like I know that it doesn't always play out that way when we deal with the police. Like, a lot of times when we decide to ask questions and be nice about it, we get that kind of feedback. And I'll use myself as an example. When I was 17 years old. And I had just got my license. I had bought a car, and I didn't have the paperwork straight on it. So I saved my money up, got my insurance, got my registration and everything. And then I decided to go for a drive. I had my friends with me, and I got boxed in by 4 police officers, and they got out the car, weapons drawn, because they thought my car was stolen. So here I am, 17 years old, with a Beretta put to my head.
How terrifying is that?
By the police, and And he told me, don't move or I'll blow your effing brains out. So I'm terrified. So I literally, like you said, I had to explain exactly where my hands were going.
But see, in that situation, the way that it started made it bad from the beginning.
And they assumed that because, the car, I guess, the plates didn't register. And this is back in the 90s. This is like 94, 95.
Yeah, but sometimes they have, like sometimes your information doesn't go through all systems.
It wasn't automated like it is today. You know what I'm saying? You go and get your paperwork registered today, it's in the system immediately. But like back then, a lot of that stuff was done analog. So it takes days or weeks before that stuff gets in the system, because I drove my car that day. As soon as I got my paperwork straight, I slapped my plates on and we went driving that day. And when they pulled me over, I'm talking about 4 cars, at least 5 police officers. Every last one of them had their weapons drawn. Every last one of them. And when the guy that had his weapon on me, when I gave him my paperwork, he took it back to the car. The rest of those police officers that stood and watched us while he did that kept their weapons on us.
I can't say that hasn't happened. I know I saw an article where, Maxine Waters had actually gotten out of a car because there was a situation where a young Black guy was pulled over by the police, and she did not think that the situation was safe. So she got out to see what was going on, to watch and see what was going on. So I can say that some people, their interactions are not good.
And this is why we don't have, as a collective, for the most part, and I'm not saying that every Black person that interacts with the police always has a bad experience, but for the most part, most Black people don't have that a straight up positive outlook about the police. We're terrified, And I'm talking about people who got jobs and careers and they're tax-paying, upstanding citizens. You get pulled over by the cops, all these thoughts are running through your head like, oh my gosh, man, this might be my last time.
Children are terrified too. Did you see there was a article on a little boy that was playing outside of his house, and a police car rode by and he hid from the policeman behind the car?
Yeah, I mean,
that's heartbreaking.
We've been killed for less, for just being, and there we could go down a laundry list of, ways that we've been killed at the hands of police. And this is why this case with Breonna Taylor it's exhausting and it's devastating. And I can't even pretend to imagine what,
her family's feeling, her mother's feeling, because her daughter is gone. She was young.
Yeah. She's a year older than our oldest son.
Really? She was what, 25,
26? Our oldest is 25. So like that hits home, man. That puts things into perspective when you see something like that. As a parent
in this climate today, if you have a child that's older, that even if they live in your house, they live somewhere else, and they have to go out there, you're afraid, because you don't know if that's the last time that you'll see your child. It just takes one bad interaction. It just takes one bad decision, and it could be your last time. And like you said, there are so many cases. I looked at, it was an article about this lady. I think she was in California. She was trying to do a mural on all the slain young Black men and women. There were so many people that were slain. She can't keep up with her mural. That does something. That is so many, and it hits home. Like, we have a mutual friend, and her family member recently had an interaction with police, and it did not turn out well. It was fatal.
And you're absolutely right. It was fatal. And this is something that we have to constantly deal with as a society, Black society, that is. Like I said, we live in 2 different Americas, and it's a shame that we have to continue to readdress these types of things because they constantly fall on deaf ears. We're going to go ahead and take a break and hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Okay, welcome back, guys. So to kind of wrap things up with regard to, the Breonna Taylor case, we know that cops got let off and people, again, took to the streets, and they've been going to the streets pretty hard. Fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, man, there was still no justice, and it's sad. My wife and I, we've been talking about this, off and on, pretty much throughout the whole ordeal with Breonna Taylor, amongst other black folks that kind of lost their lives, be it through police or through racism, what have you. It's just that this is just one of those moments, man, where it's just
too real.
It's too real, because this young lady was
around our child's age, our daughter's age.
Yeah, our oldest son, to be exact. She was only a year older than our oldest son, and like that, it just hits home. And black family, that's something that we all need to think about. Like, if you're not sitting down and having these conversations with your young children, your teenage children, your adult children,
and you're doing a disservice.
So we gotta, and I'm pretty sure, and I'm not trying to insult anybody on the podcast that's listening, and I know y'all probably doing y'all due diligence by having these conversations, but we need to make sure that we stay on it, and we need to start doing things to protect ourselves, y'all. We need to start utilizing these same amendments, like the Second Amendment. If you ain't exercising your Second Amendment right, you should probably be doing that, because these are not, these are really weird times we're in. The country is extremely polarized, and, sometimes you could be in the wrong place at the right time.
Make sure you get your carrying license.
Yeah, so it's real out here, and don't think just because you live in the suburbs or you live out in a nice affluent neighborhood that you can't experience or go through any of this. So
this is just our opinion on the whole Breonna Taylor case, and we hope that we've given you something to think about.
Right, and we hope that that the big takeaway is that if there isn't any more reason for us to come together as a people, now is the time more than ever. We have to learn to put our petty differences aside. Brothers, we got to stop looking at each other sideways and sizing each other up. Sisters, we got to stop hating on each other. We got to stop doing these things and start showing that we have love and respect for one another, for ourselves, and that will start changing our own narrative. And then you'll have other cultures outside of us look at that and be like, yeah, we can't really mess with them like that, because they're a community.
They stand by each other. They look out for each other.
They're a tribe, and you look at how the Jewish people do it. Look at how the Latinos do it. You ain't gonna run up. You're not gonna run up in their communities and be reckless, because when they come together as a community, man, it's pretty doggone strong. And we got to start being the same way. And it used to be like that, but a lot of things happened in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s that were divisive by our government to kind of break us up and divide us even further. And we are where we are as a result of that. So
we need to try to change that narrative. We need to start supporting each other. We need to try to get our community needs and things that we need to change in our communities, such as what you said with with pooling our money and getting people in positions that can help our community. We need to start our own narrative to better ourselves and further the issues that are plaguing our community. But my thoughts on this whole case is, rest in peace, and I hope that we can start building to where we don't have these cases, because there's so many of them, we can't keep up. Rest in peace, baby girl.
I will say this, that the Most High is watching. He is watching, and he is definitely going to recompense sooner or later. So we all have to just make sure we stay prayed up, and that we stay, whatever you believe in, stay connected to that, and, keep your family close and keep them sacred. And with that being said, everybody,
this is the end of our episode of What's That All About. If you have any topics that you'd like us to talk about,
hit us up in the messages. You can leave us a voice message, and we'll be more than happy to address, whatever episodes y'all want us to try to cover. And we're also open to, feedback. So if there's something that we might have put out that might have been,
changed, or you might have seen updated,
let us know.
Let us know.
We're here to teach, and we're also here to learn, and we're also here to share what we know. All right. So with that being said, I bid you all shalom on this lovely Shabbat that we're having right now, and you guys stay blessed.
Yes.
Peace.